Hey guys, today we're going to be discussing my feelings about taking reselling courses and or getting mentoring to improve your reselling business. Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Reseller Niche Podcast, a show for e-commerce buyers and sellers where we investigate unique items being bought and sold and show you how research equals knowledge equals profit.
Welcome back. So, if you're new to this show, my name is Mo, and this is the Reseller Niche Podcast where we discuss all things related to reselling and then some. So, please take a second, if possible, during the show or after the show to leave us a comment so we know what you thought of the show and if you have any questions. And also, if you could possibly leave an Apple review, that would really help us. Those ratings really help push the show. So, anyways, let's get to it. I wanted to discuss reselling courses and getting mentoring on your reselling business to improve your business. Now, I'm not really specifically going to talk about a specific course or specific guide of any kind. I'm just going to be talking about the general idea. So I'll start, as I usually do, going through my background. I had a regular schooling background. I went to school, went to college, I had an IT major, and I believe education is huge no matter what you do, whether you go to college or not, whether it's whatever your profession is. In fact, I think when it comes to entrepreneurism, there you go, and businesses and running businesses specifically of any kind, it's even more beneficial. So, like we said in the last episode, if education costs are going through the roof and they're going to continue to do that, justifiably, people are looking for other avenues and other than conventional professions where you need like a college degree, especially in the US, they're unbelievably expensive. But even professions that don't necessarily need degrees, like running a business, like I said, um, you really do need some sort of education, some sort of learning that has to take place for you to get ahead, to do better, to understand what you're doing so you can really focus. But unfortunately, even when I was running my previous business and the reselling business now, sometimes education is kind of put on the back burner. Schooling, there isn't obviously, I mean, there are entrepreneurs and degrees now, but they're not necessary to start an eBay business or an Amazon business, which I don't know if that's good or bad. Maybe we'll go into that as we go along here. I guess there's good and bad. Um, I guess personally, when I started on eBay years ago, I was part time. I wasn't really looking to make very much, and I didn't take any classes of any kind. Like most people, we just kind of start up, maybe listen to a YouTube channel or a podcast of some kind, and then that's it. We kind of delve in. But after the years, over the years, I should say, I've taken many, many classes, courses, seminars, and I'd say I have mixed opinions on those courses. Some were good, some were bad. Some I felt like are a waste of money, and some I felt like, to be honest, they probably should have charged more. And I'd never even heard of these people, but they did a great job. So if you were to ask me in general, because every now and then I'll have someone ask me, "Oh, you've taken a bunch of classes or courses or whatever. What would you say to that?" My answer would be this: if you're going to take a general course on how to start eBay or start Amazon, I would say probably not. Um, Reason being, when I was taking the courses I did, whenever they were general, they seemed to not really be beneficial. But whenever they were specific, for example, if I took like a private label course or a marketing course specifically geared towards, eBay, Amazon, Poshmark products, whatever it might be, it was more beneficial. I had already, usually when I took those other classes, The more specific classes, I had an idea in my head about mistakes I'd made, things I had done, experience I had had selling, good and bad. So I knew what to improve. I knew what to focus on. I could focus on it. General classes, in my opinion, are good, but I don't think they're as beneficial. So that's what I would say. I would say, start first and then think about a class second. Now, with that said, obviously you got to say that there's a lot of people that this is their side hustle. This is, reselling. They don't have the time, basically. So it's the old adage: if you have more time than money, more money than time. So if you obviously have the money, you work full time. You don't have the time to spend starting from scratch. Then have at it. That's probably a good use of your time because you're trying to maximize your time as opposed to money. So that's just me, though. Um, that's what I would say if somebody was to ask me. But I guess I kind of go back to the same thing. You kind of hear all the time, kind of the Gary V mentality, grind and fail, and then grind and fail, and grind and fail, and eventually you'll succeed, or you'll improve, or you'll get better. I'd say that's kind of right. I mean, you don't necessarily have to grind and grind and grind, but failing, I think, has a certain part of the learning process that maybe I know I'm fearful of it, but I think it's a good thing. So I guess this kind of leads me to the second half of what I was saying, because I talked about you know taking classes, but also mentoring. So for me, when it comes to talking, networking, mentoring, I believe this is at least maybe in reselling the way we do it is maybe more beneficial in a certain way. It's kind of like taking a course, but it's more specific because you're just kind of asking what you need to know about whatever your question is. Maybe it's just the idea of networking, bouncing ideas off someone in a forum or Facebook group or at a meetup or something. But I've kind of gained more from these personal interactions, these specific interactions, even if it's on a DM, which most of the time that's what mine are, than sitting in a kind of a general setting. Now, I'm a complete introvert. I rarely meet up with other resellers. I've been earlier on, I went to a lot of meetups, but not so much anymore. Definitely not this year. But I forced myself, or at least I did force myself to go out and kind of put myself out there a little bit. And like I said, mainly it was DMing. But, well, I guess mainly part of it is because this is kind of a lonely profession. We're kind of on our own, just listing, sourcing. You don't necessarily, if you don't want to, need anyone else to interact with. But I think just even if you know the answer to your question, having somebody else say, "Oh yeah, I went through that situation too," and being able to bounce that, not even an idea, that experience off somebody, I think is helpful. Considering we don't really have coworkers, like you would in a quote unquote regular profession. So, what am I going to do if I get stuck? I'm just kind of go over and over in it in my head, or argue with someone in a online. You don't want to argue with a customer. You want to figure out what to do and the best way to do it. And the best way to do that is to talk to someone else who has done something similar. So to be honest, this podcast was actually born out of an idea from a mentor group that I used to be part of. Chris Lynn, of Daily Refinement, he used to run, and he still runs a lot of these groups, like mentoring groups. I'm not sure what he calls them now. And this one was back in the day. This was, I think, late 2016, early 2017, something like that. And it was me, 4 or 5 other people. And one of those people was Russ Lee. And 2 of us had the idea to start a reselling podcast. So that's kind of where this whole thing came from. So going back to my original thought, if somebody was someone wants to ask me about taking a reselling course, I would probably ask them to experiment a little bit first with eBay or with Amazon, and kind of figure out kind of the direction they want to go in before they start kind of kind of splashing out on an expensive course at all. So I don't want to come off like I'm down on courses or reselling courses or whatever you want, seminars. I just when I'm a lot of times when I'm thinking of courses, I've taken a lot over the years, not even more than reselling related, but a lot that were more business related, general. Um, so that's what I'm thinking about a lot of times. So what I prefer is the experience, the actual trial and error. I feel that that is more beneficial. So I'll leave you one final thought, and this is kind of off. It was kind of actually before I did reselling. When I used to run a shipping store, we had mentors. I had a mentor. His name was Floyd. Is an older gentleman, a lot of experience, really intelligent, and he was basically a lifetime salesman. He ran multiple businesses of all kinds. And now, back then, uh, I'm going back 15, 18 years now, they would have us go door to door. And, and I mean door to door to every door. They would literally have us wherever our address was. They'd say, okay, you're going to go out 5 miles in a 5 mile radius, which is huge if you're going door to door. And literally would knock on every business door, regardless if it was a McDonald's or a bank or a gym or anything. So that's what they would have us do, just to kind of force us to be more extroverted and talkative and get to know the neighborhood and all that kind of stuff. So, anyways, we literally went door to door. And one of these days when I was doing that, I was had a mentor. Floyd was kind of in the background, just kind of watching. So I was terrible at this, really horrible. It's nerve wracking. I hated it, and you could tell. So when I was doing this one time, I remember it was a bank. I went through the spiel. We had a little set thing. So I knocked on the door, and there was a guy that opened the door just barely, like maybe like 5 or 6 inches. Then I started talking. Then he opened the door even more. So I'm like, okay, great. So he's opened the door, and I'm standing in front of him. Then I continued, and then within about 5 seconds, he just slams the door, and I thought he'd like because he like grazed the side of my nose. I thought, oh no, he's broken my nose and this and that. He didn't. I mean, I was just being dramatic, but it was nerve wracking and scaring. Maybe I was just embarrassed, to be honest. So, anyways, Floyd was watching this, and he kind of pulled me aside before we went to the next stop, and he said, "You know what? You know about my first jobs and everything. So we did a lot of sales, and he used to do door-to-door sales for Sears Roebuck. So he said, you know, what he had to do every single day, and what his boss, especially his first one, said was, you need to at least get 20 people slam doors in your face every single day. And that's what you go out to get. You go out to get the no's. Because if you go out and you get 20 no's, then you're bound to at least get some yeses along the way. And more importantly, you won't care about 20 no's, 50 no's, 100 no's, a million no's. It won't phase you anymore. So you just check them off your list, you move on, you know who to avoid, and you know how to approach people differently. So, anyways, I'm no door-to-door salesman. He said all that. That pumped me up for the next one. Went to the next 5 doors. They all ignored me, and I gave up and went back to my store. So that didn't really work out, but the message stayed with me, though. And the fact that I had someone to share that experience with, I still remember that. I can't even remember the face of the guy that slammed the door in my face. I just remember the door. So I guess my point is I think that was more beneficial. That experience, that bouncing it off the idea, the experience off somebody else was more beneficial than maybe some of the general meaningless PowerPoint presentations that I sat through. That where I was kind of looking for someone to give me an idea for my business rather than knowing in my head, okay, I need to improve this. I need to get better at that. I think that's more beneficial. So, anyways, those are my thoughts on reselling education courses and mentors. What are your thoughts? Have you taken a course? Are you planning to take one? Do you have a mentor? Are you a mentor? That would be great, actually. I'd love to interview a mentor. Please leave us a comment or a message. And like I said, if you could possibly leave us an Apple review, that would be the best. But I really want to thank you for listening. If you'd like to meet up, network with other people, we have a Facebook group called Reseller Niche Podcast Help Group on Facebook. And until the next one, I just want to remind you that research equals knowledge equals profit. And thanks for listening. Have a good one. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Reseller Niche Podcast. Show notes and social media links are located at resellerniche.com. Please comment, rate, and subscribe to us on iTunes or YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.